Hunter, kiss my ass.
Follow the buzzer. Rest in peace. Woo! The best there is, the best there was, and the best ever will be. What you gonna do, brother? Hey, yo.
Can you see me now?
Strategy my Oklahoma ass.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Welcome to the JM Report. I'm your host, GoodOlJM, and this is episode 53 on this April 5th, 2019, Wrestlemania weekend, coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And yes, folks, this is the end game, not the Avengers one, but the one for WrestleMania. As this past week, we had the go-home shows for Raw and SmackDown, which I'm about to break down here a little bit. Also, the lineup for WrestleMania, the lineup for NXT TakeOver New York, and the G1 Supercard taking place at Madison Square Garden tomorrow night, matter of fact. And also an updated roster, if you will, of the Hall of Fame induction. So, let's get right into it, shall we? Because I have a lot to cover here. I will have a lot to cover here. Raw opened up with Stephanie, unfortunately, but it did. And thankfully, she opened up with an April Fool's joke, because what she said would have completely turned off the interest of the WrestleMania main event this Sunday. And it wasn't even a good one. But she started off saying that she included herself into the already triple threat match to become a fatal four-way. And of course, she was kidding, but the fans still booed because it wasn't a good joke. The story itself, it's clustered already. It's FUBAR beyond belief. But she announced what a lot of us already knew, or at least predicted. After Charlotte Flair's victory over Asuka the previous week to become the new SmackDown Women's Champion, the question was, well, what are they going to do with two championships in one match if only one is on the line? Well, how about we take a little bit of an ingredient from all the way back to WrestleMania 6, when it was Hulk Hogan versus The Ultimate Warrior for both World Heavyweight and Intercontinental Championships, title for title, champion versus champion. But in this case, it will be a triple threat, winner takes all. So now the next question will be after WrestleMania, and we'll probably won't know more about this until next Monday night during the quote-unquote shakeup, or the draft, as it used to be known, of whether or not these titles will be unified. The old man is once again frickin' losing it. Make up your mind. I mean, it's great to have changes here and then, but not changes you've done already. How many more times are we going to see, if this is the case, to unify titles every so often, every few years, and said, oh yeah, we haven't done that in a while, let's do that again. It's just enough. Now, a lot of people are pointing out, well, this may have to do with the Fox deal, and somehow, it was suggested that they didn't want too many titles jumping back and forth, or have the same titles on the same show. I mean, has Fox even watched WWE in the past decade or so? Assuming that came from them, but it's just ideas floated out there. I mean, I read it from so many sources, and no one could really pin down exactly whose idea or who's the one suggesting all of this, whether it was from the Fox side or the WWE side. Things are just complicated as it is with so many championships. Why not just leave it the way it is And so far, the only champions that have been brand jumping have been the women's tag team champions, but they only done that once. The vast majority of time since they won the titles back at the Elimination Chamber, they jumped once to NXT only to announce, like, hey, everybody on the NXT women's roster, step it up. And have they gone back since? The one time that they appeared on Smackdown on a losing effort in a non-title match to the Iconics, that was it. So does anyone even understand the concept of brand jumping? Even if it's not to have a match every single week like Ricochet and Aleister Black have been having. But seriously, I'm thinking they really don't know what to do with now too many women's championships. I couldn't imagine if they would have a secondary, like a women's Intercontinental Championship, for example. And I'm hopefully I'm not giving them any ideas for this. But as much as they're giving them more time in the ring, time for main eventing other pay-per-views, such as Money in the Bank, Hell in a Cell, Elimination Chambers, and now WrestleMania. Hell, they're finally giving them a Royal Rumble that they only main evented once. So what's next? Are going to start minimizing or taking away the toys, their props, if you will, these titles, and not have too many to strive for? It's lackluster as it is. The women's roster on both shows, I think it's more on SmackDown than it is Raw, because everyone on the women's roster on Raw gets at least airtime, even if it's literally a cameo backstage walking around looking for Waldo. On SmackDown, people have been wondering where the hell was Asuka all this time between the Rumble and losing the championship to Charlotte last week. She was the freaking champion of your show, and does not make one lick of appearance. Not even for a promo, not even for a cameo, not even to have like an open challenge or anything. Tag team champions, women's, no, they're on Raw. No room, no time for them. So, in short, and I haven't begun to continue with the rest of the Raw review, but between Raw and SmackDown, the build-up, with the exception of maybe one or two matches, the build-up to WrestleMania as a whole feels underwhelming to me. Feels everything, and I mentioned a few weeks ago, there aren't too many matches, and that was like less than a month. And there weren't too many matches at the time announced or scheduled. And all of a sudden we got, which I get into later, the Raw tag team titles being defended, and supposedly it was spoiled, but I'll get to that. And then literally at the last minute this past week on SmackDown, the SmackDown tag team titles will be defended. Like, oh yeah, we got them, don't we? So, this being the case, this shattered pretty much anyone's dreams and expectations to at least have a visual of all four horsewomen of the WWE holding up championships at the end of WrestleMania. Because two of the horsewomen are in the main event, and only one of them can leave with two titles. Assuming, which I'm pretty sure is the case, Sasha and Bayley retain their tag team titles, then you got only 3/4 of the horsewomen with championships. So who's going to be the odd one out? Thankfully, this segment lasted less than 2 minutes, because up next was Brock Lesnar with Paul Heyman. And after the usual shticks of he's going to defeat Brock Lesnar, come into Suplex City, blah, blah, blah. Sure enough, Rollins shows up, confronts Lesnar. And again, similar stuff. I'm walking to Suplex City and burn it down, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, watch how you're going to get charcoal and this and that. So finally, we get some physicality where it's a little bit even, as Lesnar did not take Rollins seriously. They were face-to-face, so by the time Rollins was done with his promo, Lesnar goes to leave and show the checks or show the bumps Rollins on the way out. Rollins didn't take kindly to this, stops Lesnar, spins him around, and starts punching him. So they go back at it a little bit, back and forth. And finally, Rollins, I guess, looked at previous years of how to take advantage of Lesnar in particular, and that's to kick him in the dick. Yeah, whoever would have thought of that one? To stop a monster the size of Brock Lesnar Where could he be weak? Yeah, dick in a kick. Wait, what? No, kick in a dick. Kick him in the dick. So one dick kick later, and a curb stomp leaves the Universal Champion laid out in the middle of the ring, thus building momentum for the main event. Oh, I'm not the main event. Hell no. But the Universal Championship match at WrestleMania, as Seth Rollins now walks in more proud. He should be injury free, as he has taken a lot of time off. You notice the past few weeks on Raw, he hasn't had too many matches, let alone had too much altercation, as he's been nagging a few injuries. Nothing too serious, but, you know, I'm sure we've all had a real sore back that just took forever to heal on its own, no matter what you did to it. I believe that was Rollins' issue, not to mention his surgically repaired knee was also giving him an issue. So kudos on WWE for giving him that time off. Besides, you know, still making appearances was enough. We will have a 8-woman tag team match that's been advertised all weekend. Tamina, Nia Jax, and the Iconics, who are on loan from Smackdown, they take on Sasha Banks, Bayley, Natalya, and Beth Phoenix. Of course, this would be Beth Phoenix's first match on Raw, 7 years in the making. She since has been retired, has a family with Edge, and inducted into the Hall of Fame, which many people still debate to this day why so soon after she'd been retired. Probably one of the youngest ones ever to be inducted, but as a talent. But hey, I mean, she paid her dues and didn't last as long as others, say like Alita or Trish Stratus, but you know, made a lot of headway. She made a lot of heads turn, and despite her few years, I mean, why not? You notice that they didn't try to bring back anyone else that might have had a few more years all over Beth to make things a little bit interesting in the women's roster. Now, I'm not saying Beth should go after the women's title anytime soon, but it's a start to go with the tag team titles with your longtime partner, Natalya, and we'll see how you do at WrestleMania itself. And maybe further down the line, they might reconsider. But I hope this is not a one-off or something like a Shawn Michaels situation, I guess, where he, you know, broke his own promise. He does a one-off and then disappears entirely. So this whole point of Beth Phoenix was just to build up to WrestleMania for the women's tag team title match at Mania. You didn't win, so thanks for coming. Yeah, don't do that. We see a tinted window SUV pull up to the backstage area, and out comes the hometown hero of Batista, emanating from Washington, D.C. this week. As he walks down the ring, and as you heard at the top of the program, that was literally his entire promo. So let me set this up. Music hits, he walks out, he gets the spotlight shine on him again, walks into the ring, points to the Titantron. And there plays, I would say maybe like a 25 second video of the times where Batista defeated Triple H, first for the world title at WrestleMania 21, and then all the rematches they had, including a Hell in a Cell. I believe that was 3 pay-per-views in a row, and they've never hooked up ever since. So the idea there is, and Batista's been preaching it for a while, Hunter has never defeated him. For the world title, no less. And again, as you heard from the top of the program, after all the mockery, after all the Spice Girl lyrics, Batista had a few simple words. Hunter, kiss my ass. Mic drop, hit the music, leaves. Probably one of the greatest promos I've ever seen and heard in such a long time. And from a man who really hasn't seen much WWE TV, meaning hasn't been in front of their cameras for so many years. I really would like to know what was the idea behind it. Give me what I want. Give me what I want. A few weeks ago, I'm like, that's all he had to say. He was stuck on repeat, and it was just overkill after the second time. But thankfully, all that was made up for it, and Batista will head into WrestleMania, take on Triple H. No holds barred. Caught a glimpse of Elias standing outside MetLife Stadium, as it looks like he must have hitchhiked from New York the week before, and now he's stuck in Jersey. But it's okay. These guys will pick me up eventually. It's like he was dropped off in the middle of nowhere, and knew he would rendezvous eventually with everybody else at MetLife. We get Jinder Mahal going one-on-one with Apollo Crews, and it was never mentioned to be a lumberjack match, but the ring was surrounded by participants of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which the trophy was ringside. And just a couple of minutes in, Crews gets the victory over Mahal. He asks for the trophy to stand on their apron so he can pose with it. So he's posing, flexing his muscles. Here comes the B team. They start posing with it. Here comes the Ascension. They start posing with it. All of a sudden, no one could decide who should pose with the trophy. So an all-out brawl breaks loose, with everyone jumping in the ring, fighting this corner, that corner, everywhere, corner. And little by little, everyone starts getting tossed out over the top rope. And then at the end, we see Apollo Crews stand alone in the ring as he builds momentum to the upcoming Battle Royal. For what is now to be Kurt Angle's final match on Raw, and considering what took place, it never happened. We never got to see Kurt Angle's final match on Raw. So he was supposed to go one-on-one with Rey Mysterio Jr., and Angle first comes out to thank the crowd. And all of a sudden, it's almost as if Kurt Angle wasn't aware this was going to happen. But there was a very amazing edited video put together of Kurt Angle's highlights throughout the WWE career. The one time they didn't use TNA footage or Impact footage. I guess Dixie was asking for too much money. Towards the end, it got very, very emotional, and you could see Angle in the ring after it was over, getting a little teary-eyed and choked up. Again, it was almost as if Kurt, just say what you got to say, and then stand by for Ray. But instead, no, they just cut. It wasn't like Angle pointed to the Titantron like Batista did, or Angle himself announcing, okay, these guys put something together. Let's take a look. To me, it looked like a legit response and reaction, and we need to see more of this. But instead, we get Baron Corbin making his way to the ring, once again taunting and ruining Angle's moment. And Angle offered for let's not wait till Mania. Let's do this right here and now. Out comes Mysterio, and he offers to take on Baron Corbin instead in Angle's place. So both guys team up and take out Baron Corbin, as a match would eventually be scheduled between Rey Mysterio and Baron Corbin later on in the night. So once again, even on April Fool's Day, we are not told that Angle's opponent will be someone else other than Baron Corbin at WrestleMania to be his last match with the company. Ricochet and Aleister Black take on the Revival for the Raw Tag Team titles. And this one ended, in so many ways, pretty much saved everyone from keeping them looking weak moving forward. As the Revival did retain via countout, but technically speaking, Ricochet and Aleister Black are still undefeated, at least on Raw. What happened was, Aleister Black is taken up by the Revival outside the ring. Ricochet does a suicide dive over the turnbuckles, passing the ring post and onto the Revival near the timekeeper's table. So the referee starts counting. And the one time they actually do the count out correctly, unlike the New Day and Daniel Bryan and Rowan a few weeks ago. where the referee stopped, and then I'll explain. In this case, on Raw, I believe it was Wilder. Wilder ran back into the ring, and the referee was about to maybe 4 or 5. So Ricochet stumbling. He's trying to get up. He stands up, makes his way towards the ring, and he does the slow climbing into the ring. He doesn't slide. He doesn't pop up on the apron. He does like a monkey bar climb, like using the bottom ropes to reach up to the second one, to reach up to the third. All in all, we have Dawson underneath the ring, and he reaches out and holds on to Ricochet's ankle, preventing him from entering the ring. And the referee's still counting till he reaches the 10 count, rings the bell, and the match is over as the Revival retain the titles. Now, I was comparing this to a Smackdown match between The New Day and Daniel Bryan and Rowan, where this eventually guaranteed Kofi Kingston his title match at WrestleMania. Everybody was on the outside, and the referee was already counting. So Big E already rolled over the announce table onto Rowan, and the referee was up about to maybe 6 or 7. So once Big E rolls in, the referee should have continued counting to end the match. But for some reason, probably more likely to add drama, I believe that's how I explained it then, the referee restarted the count and eventually counted out Rowan and Daniel Bryan for the New Day to win the match. So it's funny how they change the rules as they go every single time. Ronda Rousey's prepping up, and this is probably one of the highlights of the show because in my notes, the words just kept going. She was prepping up for a 6-woman tag team match where she was forced to team up with her opponents at Mania, Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, taking on the entire Riot Squad. Probably a good time to mention that Ronda put out a video on her YouTube channel supposedly answering the question or the rumor question about her being done after Mania. And some say it turned out to be an April Fool's joke. Others say, oh no, it's legit because this is what was mentioned months ago, that Ronda Rousey will be done with WrestleMania, after WrestleMania. And in the video, she's with her husband in the beginning, Travis Brown, and mockingly says, yes, it's true, because I'm going to begin a career in sax playing. And turns out she's pretty good with it, unless that was another April Fool's joke and there was a track playing over this. And she moved around like bending backwards, side to side, more times than Kenny G did. Not that Kenny G was a sax player. But there was, I think, way too much body movement. So either way, I thought the piece was pretty funny. The second half of the video shows a lot of random talent backstage: Samoa Joe, Paul Heyman, Alexa Bliss. I think between Alexa and Paul Heyman, those were my 2 favorite parts. You see Ronda all the way down in the hallway in the background, and Alexa in the foreground talking to the camera. Like, she's so annoying. And Paul Heyman sharing a conversation that he had with Travis Brown, saying that something along the lines that Brown told Heyman that she's great with in sax or with sax. Heyman's response is, well, you're the luckiest man in the world. And then there was clarification. I think, oh. I forgot who Heyman was sitting next to. Was it Elias? I can't remember. But whoever it was, he was just laughing his ass off. And you see Ronda again in the background in the locker room. I don't know if it was a unisex locker room, but again, she's playing with the saxophone, just walking by. And yeah, it was all in good fun. But not since that report came out, and it was a Team Z interview, all but confirming that she will be done. But we won't know for sure. And if it's for the reasons why she gave originally or first reported, start a family, well, why not? Why not? I mean, thankfully she hasn't been easily injured with any dislocations that require surgeries or anything like that, any tears anywhere. I think they're safe to say that the any and all serious injuries that she could have received would have been in the UFC, talking about concussions and swelling and maybe blood clots, pretty much injuries you won't hear anyone getting in the world of pro wrestling. World of pro wrestling, tears, dislocations, bone breaks here and there. Not that UFC. Well, ask Anderson Silva if bones don't break in UFC. It's normal. But yeah, she was prepping up for her six-woman tag team match. And if you haven't already, go check out her video from this past week. Interestingly enough, we get a video package of all the Hall of Fame inductions. Now, news broke early in the day of the final name to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I was very excited because I am still a huge fan of this man. And I was waiting for the highlight package, if you will, of the Hall of Fame induction. But we don't get it. Instead, we just got everyone involved that's been named so far: Honky Tonk Man, Tori Wilson, Harlem Heat, Hart Foundation, D-Generation X. And now, Brutus the Barber Beefcake will be inducted into the Hall of Fame. News broke during the week that it would be Hulk Hogan, no surprise, doing the actual induction to Brother Bruta. But I don't know. I just found it very disappointing that Beefcake couldn't get his own video. Why is the question. In a 3-hour show, no less. You couldn't find time to put together a minute and a half video package, some voiceover, his original theme song or whatever. But at least WWE was able to upload a few, just a couple of matches involving Beefcake and Hogan, ironically, from SummerSlam 89 and WrestleMania 9, where both occasions Hogan and Beefcake teamed up, first taking on Macho Man and Zeus. Later on, it was Money Inc. at WrestleMania 9 for the tag titles. So there's your highlight, folks. We see Alexa Bliss chatting with Tyler Breeze and EC3. For a while, it seemed like EC3 was a mute. But they were talking about the fact that they were proud that she brought together the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and also including the match from earlier on, and how the match would include Michael Che and Colin Jost of SNL. And they all started joking and pointing out the previous weekend's weekend update, how funny their jokes were. And they were. I caught it. It was pretty hilarious. Enter Braun Strowman into frame. And he's asking everyone what is so funny. And that, they weren't laughing at Strowman. They weren't laughing at anything that happened. But talked about Che and Jost. But it was these other guys that brought it up. These local guys, these local talent who was further down the hallway. And they were less than half the size of Strowman. So Strowman basically says, I'm going to pretend that you're Colin Jost and that you're Michael Che, and I will see you in the ring tonight. So we have an impromptu handicap match, 2 against 1, involving Braun Strowman. Roman Reigns was about to be interviewed, only to be attacked from behind by Drew McIntyre, shouting at him he should not have accepted the WrestleMania match after being thrown into anvil cases and railings backstage. And it's interesting because we're so close to Mania, and one of the biggest stars, Roman Reigns, who is supposedly not even scheduled to have been at Mania because there's just wasn't no way to predict that he would have been back so soon. Not that I'm complaining, but at the time when it happened and they made changes and the ball was rolling in so many different directions for other people and different angles, Reigns was not part of it. So in order to accommodate him and also still building on Drew McIntyre to be a legit threat as one of the biggest heels on the roster, what great timing. What a great pairing between McIntyre and Roman Reigns. I believe this would be the first time they went one-on-one at a WrestleMania, no less, this Sunday. So the time is here for probably the biggest WTF moments of the night, probably in the past few weeks. And I've been going on and on about they've had 2 months since the Royal Rumble to put something interesting together creatively and storyline-wise, storytelling, dialogue, the whole 9 yards, to keep things interested with Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch. Here was my question at the end of all this. Why could this particular storyline have been stretched out for 2 months, and forget the suspensions, forget the fines, forget that Becky was injured and milked it for over a month and blah, blah, blah. This one piece alone could have been 2 months worth of storyline. I mean, it could have been repetitive, but still interesting. Where, I mean, forget the 6-woman tag team match. By the way, Ronda tapped out Liv Morgan like 2 seconds after she was tagged in herself. But she kept the promise from earlier that, hey, we'll try to get along or whatever during the match. But once that bell rings to end the match, that's it. I'm gonna kick their asses. And sure enough, as soon as the bell rang, Ronda attacks Charlotte. So they go at it for a little while. Then Becky steps in. So it's Becky and Ronda going at it. Charlotte's on the outside of the ring. Finally, we get some referees. They couldn't break it up. Here comes security, local talent. They couldn't break it up. And here comes probably, it's like they literally walked out of a police store. I've never seen police uniforms so ironed out and so it was just funny. They got more talent, local talent to dress as cops, to come down, and they were all but they all had alligator arms. It's like they were not trying to break up a fight. And some of them got kicked in the head, like stiff shots to the head. A couple of elbows and knees and kicks. But still, they were like powder puffing. And eventually, Ronda gets cuffed. Becky gets cuffed. And again, this whole time, Charlotte Flair's on the outside watching. So what happens? They try to get both women out of the ring. And Charlotte sees Becky and takes a shot. So while she's being restrained then, she takes a shot at Ronda. So finally, Charlotte gets handcuffed. So all 3 women are restrained. And between the ringside area to the top of the stage, it took forever to get up there because everyone's fighting back. Everyone's kicking away. They're trying to get these women to backstage and out of the arena. Now, I haven't read this next segment. I haven't read anywhere that it was pre-taped or was done early in the day or anything like that. But it felt like it was because how perfect it was shot. And that there weren't too many of that bullshit zooming in and out nonsense. Everything and everybody was close quarters. What point is there for zooming in and out? Anyway. So with 3 women that need to be taken to jail, there were only 2 squad cars and one of them was an undercover. So what happens? Charlotte Flair gets placed into the actual police squad car. And for reasons, they decided to put Becky and Ronda together in the undercover police squad car in the back seat. So you see Ronda go in, and then on the opposite side, Becky goes in. And you got that now soon-to-be classic shot of the cameraman catching both Ronda and Becky making eye contact, and they're already pissed. So they couldn't punch and swing away, so they start kicking each other. There's feet, knees, ankles, thighs, all these stuff flying around to a point where Ronda ends up kicking out one of the windows. And the driver, or I should say the officer, he just turns around and stop. No. Hey. Behave. No. Hey. Stop that. Right? Like, oh my God, you should be on administrative leave without pay. And why isn't there no fencing or barricading between the front and back seats? So yeah, let's get one of them out of there, and that's Becky Lynch. She gets tossed out. Let's put in the back of the other car, where Charlotte Flair is. So the officer opens up the door, and Charlotte pops right out. And no one even tried to stop her or restrain Charlotte as she gives a nice stiff kick to Becky's gut. So now Charlotte's on a rampage. And all of a sudden, as they're trying to break those two up, somehow, I guess Randa might have extra limbs that we're not aware of, but while handcuffed, puts the car that she was in, jumps in the front seat, by the way, and puts the car that she was in into gear and drives forward, hitting the other car in front of her. Like, oh no, oh yeah, oh my gosh, she's a menace. So took about 2 or 3 officers to get her out of the front seat, only to put her back in the back seat of the same car. And they threw Becky into the other car, and that one drives off. And the other car with Ronda in it with the broken window, they drive off, and Charlotte's by herself with no car to put her in. I mean, words like the ones I've just used cannot explain or give this segment justice. It was just going to show how much these three hate each other, especially Becky and Charlotte, best of friends, and especially the Becky and Ronda side of things. I still stand, like many, that this should have been a one-on-one match between Becky and Ronda. Charlotte had, considering how things turned out for all the women on the rest of the card, Charlotte should consider herself lucky that she was even considered and thrown into the main event, making it a triple threat. Now for 2 championships. But this goes to show that there is at least one person I would think that has an idea that can be creative, chaotic, but at least it drew the attention of the audience. People were tweeting, hell, I even tweeted, what, is this match going to take place now at Rikers Island? But we'll find out later on, and I'll explain during the Smackdown review as to what happened. But between the Batista straight to the point promo and this, it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen on Raw. But still lackluster compared to everything else. Overall, it's just still lackluster. And probably one of the most ridiculous, and this is what killed it for me, unfortunately, after all that chaos. And one of the most ridiculous segues. They come back from commercial, they replay the darn thing several times, and then just like, oh, I guess we should mention this that I did not see. I didn't watch this, but they were promoting Ronda Rousey's appearance on the Today Show for Thursday this week. And then all of a sudden getting to talking about, well, we will know about the legal statuses of Ronda leading up to that show, but we'll keep you informed and blah, blah, blah. Like, really? I mean, the kayfabe was still a thing, and the Today Show got wind of this, which I'm sure they talked about. It's like, this woman just committed a crime on live TV, but got arrested. Are you sure we want to have her on? I mean, how quickly, or how often do you hear anyone making bond or bail in less than 24 hours? And still keep your commitments to showing up on a TV show. We get a tag team match between Heavy Machinery versus Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. Not long into the match, we see Lacey Evans cameo, blah, 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 stage, blah, blah, blah. I'm almost done with this nonsense. It's getting repetitive. I know I've used that word more than once today. Back to the match. Heavy Machinery gets the victory after delivering the compactor to Chad Gable. And it looks like there were some seeds planted here. There were shots of Bobby Roode of disapproval and disappointment that they've lost yet again as a tag team. So maybe not at the Battle Royal or in the Battle Royal, it wouldn't make any sense. It would be too much things going on at the same time to keep track of all these subplots, if you will. But more than likely, we're going to see pretty soon the breakup of Chad Gable and Bobby Roode. So we get the handicap match of Braun Strowman and the 2 local talents that are, in his mind, considered to be Michael Che and Colin Jost. Pretty much, yeah, a squash match, but very impressive to see Braun Strowman pick up 2 men, one on his shoulder, to power slam them and get the win. Had they been not ragdolled throughout the whole match, maybe they could have had some kind of strategy to take on Braun Strowman here, but never happened. Bobby Lashley and Leo Rush are getting interviewed in the ring. And the only time, as far as I know, that they, being WWE announcers, mention about the rumors of Finn Balor being the Demon at Mania. Only convenient when it's rumors. It's okay when it's in the dirt sheets or whatnot, would they acknowledge it or even bring it up on live TV. But these rumors that you refer to, it was more like, I hope we get to see this. It should happen. He's missed out before. For whatever reason, he didn't do it in New Orleans. Finn Balor did. But yeah, they've confirmed. They literally confirmed this less than a minute later that we are going to see Finn Balor in demon makeup taking on Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania, and it sucked. This delivery sucked. Balor wasn't even on the show, other than a pre-recorded video on a Titantron. The demon's coming for you, Lashley. Little smoke and mirrors, and all of a sudden turns into the demon with his makeup on. And as the demon, all he said was, "Ah." Yeah, that's the sound I made after seeing this damn segment. Like, really? This is. Why can't they just make it look like this is happening organically, instead of mocking or insulting the fans' intelligence like they always do? Oh, there are rumors. How many times, how often do you hear commentators use that word rumors? Not from what's obvious on TV, but from outside sources or third parties. They didn't always do this. And this is what pissed me off even more, that once Balor appeared on screen and his music played as the demon, I don't know if it was because the music was too loud, but there was little to no reaction to this. I mean, there was like some powder puff applause, but otherwise no standing ovation, no like, oh my God, the demon. No. I don't know what more they were expecting. But the demon is an attraction. When Balor made it to the main roster, it was thought of, at least by the fans, that at every pay-per-view he would put on the demon makeup. No, he ended up wearing different colored attire, having different colored jackets to match his new T-shirt of the month. And I was fine with it. Like, okay, well, we can't always see him in black. We can't always see him in red. So there were different colored outfits, ring attires, whatnot. And when need be, when there's a big time match, which, okay, that will make sense for a title, to defend the title, take out the demon. And no, and that's not a euphemism. So they kind of ruined the surprise. They gave it away. But I'm pretty sure, hopefully, at MetLife Stadium, the sun will go down and it's dark enough late into the show, which is another thing. Oh Lord, that the settings and the environment would do the Finn Balor demon entrance justice. And curious to see exactly how they're going to pull this one off. This particular ring entrance, the rampway, the lighting, everything, and what 3D holograms they're going to use this time. So Mysterio does take on Baron Corbin here, and it was during this match, which was later confirmed by Mysterio himself, that he injured his ankle during the match, to no one's fault. And there was footage of this on Instagram and Twitter. It was a backflip coming off the turnbuckle, rolling off basically off Corbin's back, and Mysterio just landed awkwardly. It was his right ankle. And it kind of tweaked, and with the rest of Ray's body weight coming down, and that was enough for the injury to take place. But Baron Corbin was the one to get the victory here. I guess building up momentum, getting the upset win with the End of Days. After celebrating, on stage was Kurt Angle, and he applied the ankle lock on Corbin. And this is how Raw went off the air with this go-home show. There was a little added bonus where Dean Ambrose showed up after Raw went off the air and got to the ring and attacked Baron Corbin. Not much to it. Just, I'm still here, folks. I still got like another month left in my contract. So here's to all the social media audiences. And no match whatsoever for WrestleMania for Dean Ambrose, which really sucks. Hopefully but preparing or setting up some kind of send-off for the man. You know, he still is a former WWE champion, right? Shouldn't that mean anything? Probably not. Smackdown kicked off with the Kevin Owens show as he had Randy Orton and AJ Styles as his guests. Randy still not liking, as he calls them, indie guys making a living in WWE. Styles mentioned he remembered watching Randy Orton wrestle in the early 2000s. And this little conversation, if you will, went back and forth a little more. Styles was in high school when watching Randy Orton and also watching him getting suspended for drug use. Ooh. So we all knew what was coming. Even Kevin Owens did, as he just literally put his microphone down on the table as they had a bit of a conference table in the ring. Stands up, leaves the ring, and yeah, when back in the day we would see someone like a Mean Gene Okerlund or a Jim Ross or maybe even Tony Schiavone, when fighting words are exchanged and you know it's coming, the fight starts and the poor interviewer, the guy asking the questions, he jumps out of the ring and tries not to slip and slide and get hurt. But Kevin Owens, I think, figured it out and learned from others' mistakes to just, hey, you know it's coming, just get up and leave. Get up and leave and don't walk back. And the fight does ensue. Styles has Randy Orton set up for the phenomenal forearm, only to be countered by an RKO in midair. And Randy Orton has built his momentum heading for their match into Mania. Our first match of the night was a 8-man tag team match. Guessing since we're not going to have too many multiple person matches at Mania, so how about we get everyone involved in the go-home shows? I mean, yes, you still got the Battle Royals, you still got the kickoff shows where the Battle Royals will take place. But the go-home shows, just have multi-person tag team matches, which SmackDown did. And it started with an 8-man tag team match. Aleister Black and Ricochet teaming up with the SmackDown tag team champions, the Usos, taking on the Bar, Rusev, and Shinsuke Nakamura. As the babyfaces win after the Usos delivered a double super kick to Rusev and get the win. This brought out a surprise appearance from Alexa Bliss, the host of WrestleMania, pointing out that she hasn't been on SmackDown for a long time, and things haven't changed for the better. I don't know what she's talking about, much less I don't know what show she's been watching. But the majority of the time that she's been out with injury, Bliss was, SmackDown's been kicking Raw's ass. But anyway. So she mentions, and somehow she has the authority to do this, because the Usos forfeited their match during the Gauntlet match a week ago against the New Day, that they now have to defend the SmackDown tag team titles against the very same teams that were just involved in their match in a fatal 4-way. So the Usos will defend against Ricochet and Aleister Black, Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura, and the Bar at WrestleMania. And like nothing, not even like an update or follow-up, just sporadically says, oh, by the way, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Ronda Rousey, they've all been released from jail. Okay, great. So I guess the main event will still be the main event. So much for all those legal statuses and what's a plan B or anything. I mean, of course, you still had Ronda still needing to appear on the Today Show because PR, right? The Iconics get some TV time in the ring, basically just cutting a promo of how they're the ones that are going to walk out of WrestleMania as the women's tag team champions. We finally get some sort of individual announcement for Brutus the Barber Beefcake being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Still no video package other than the tweets and other social media announcements from ESPN and Sports Illustrated and blah, blah, blah. The Miz was already in the ring to cut a promo saying that at WrestleMania will be his retribution until we get Sanity's music, as it was originally scheduled for a 3-on-1 handicap match. Out comes Shane McMahon, and he taunts The Miz and shows off the photo still, or when Shane was not choking, but has his hands on The Miz's father's face back at Fastlane. So this started off as a normal handicap match where Sanity had a tag in and out. And not even a couple of minutes later, Shane reappears on stage and announces that, oh, by the way, forgot to mention this 3-on-1 handicap match is now Falls Count Anywhere. And against all odds, The Miz overcame as he took Eric Young all the way back to the outside of the arena parking lot. And after throwing him against, it wasn't an anvil case, but it was something bigger. At first I thought it was one of those laundry carts. But it was some kind of huge case that he rammed Eric Young into and pins him on the outside and gets a 3 count, and The Miz wins. This literally segues into the next segment as The Miz is celebrating, arms up in the air, the referee is raising his arms. A cop car pulls up, lights flashing and everything, and out comes Becky Lynch from the backseat. All smiles as she heads towards the ring. So in the ring was Corey Graves waiting to interview Becky, but she bypasses that and just walks over to the announce table, stands on top of it, and in so many words says that what she started back at SummerSlam last year, her revolution, will end and culminate at WrestleMania when she becomes the new women's champion with 2 belts. And of course, pointing to the sign, WrestleMania there is hanging there. Thank goodness after tonight, Smackdown was the last time we're going to see so many people point at the damn sign, but we're going to see it again next year, folks. So since not everyone's going to be showcased on WrestleMania itself, everyone else has basically been relegated to the Battle Royals for the men and women's. We get another, just like Raw, we get another hype-up match for said Battle Royals in a 18-person tag team match. Just one tag team short of making it a traditional Survivor Series tag team match that they had back in 87 and 88, where the ring was literally surrounded. And I was overthrown by the visual. If you go back to the 88 and 87 Survivor Series, it was 10 tag teams against 10 tag teams and 20 guys, right? They all stood on the apron. They literally took up the entire space of the apron on all 4 sides of the ring. And a lot of them were huge men. Fast forward to 2019, almost the same concept, and it was 18 persons, men and women. Barely half of the apron was covered. On both sides. It's just astounding. And the ring, the WWF ring might have been a foot or 2 smaller, 18 by 18, but now it's 20 by 20. So regardless, it's just astounding to see that visual. And I dare anyone to take a look at that, of this week's episode of SmackDown during the 18-person tag team match and the visual of the tag team match back at Survivor Series of 87 and 88. So on one side, you have the Hardy Boys, Heavy Machinery, R-Truth, Naomi, Asuka, yay, they found something for you, Nikki Cross, and Carmella taking on the Good Brothers of Gallows and Anderson. Andrade, who, by the way, his match with Rey Mysterio was canceled because of the injury. EC3, finally getting his match on SmackDown. Shelton Benjamin, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Zelina Vega, and Lana. And yes, by the way, both trophies for the Battle Royals were ringside: the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy and the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal Ovary trophy. I mean, my God, do you not see the outline shape of this thing? And it has strings, red strings on each side. Oh my God, who's approving this? But I guess if you're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars on a yearly basis to have your dream home, to have multiple cars, to feed your families, and have wardrobes that you need 10 closets to fill in, living in your mansion, I guess. Hey, I don't care what the trophy looks like. Just freaking pay me. Oh my God. We yet again get another Lacey cameo during this, but I like I said, I don't care anymore. This match, the 18-person tag team match, ended with a twist of fate, or a twist of stunner, from Jeff Hardy to EC3. And this is after another battle royal just erupted. It came out of nowhere. The referee couldn't control it, so he called the match. The bell rang. So after the twist of stunner, Asuka hits one of her kicks to EC3's face, and she tosses him over the top rope. So we got two faces celebrating in the ring, one man, one woman. Only for Asuka all of a sudden to turn on Jeff Hardy, and she tosses him over the top rope, being the sole survivor, if you will, in the Battle Royal. So before it was Apollo Crews and Asuka. Is this a foreshadowing of things to come? But since there aren't any automatic rematches or rematch clause for a championship, Asuka shit out of luck. Samoa Joe versus Ali, which literally didn't take that long, choked him right out after being slapped with the coquina clutch. Thanks for coming, Ali. As Daniel Bryan and Rowan make their way to the ring for the contract signing with him and Kofi Kingston, there was just some bickery back and forth, acknowledging everything that we already knew up to this point. We are still fecal, according to Daniel Bryan. And there could have been an Easter egg in all this, if you will. Earlier in the day, we saw Kofi Kingston, for some reason, he was walking around with said contract to sign for Mania. And I didn't see this at first. And it wasn't until later on in the night and the next day where people were pointing out, did anyone really look at that contract? Some people actually zoomed in, flipped the image over, and it had a different date on it. I believe October of last year. So I don't know if they couldn't print out a more convincing looking contract with maybe SmackDown's date on it or WrestleMania's date on it with the WrestleMania logo on it. And this could be a way to screw out a Kofi Kingston from the championship if he wins on Sunday. And that would be a loophole of sorts by Vince McMahon not to allow Kofi Kingston to win the championship. So those were your go-home shows for WrestleMania, Raw and SmackDown. And I got to say, the only segments that caught my attention was the Batista promo, the chaos with Rousey, Flair, and Lynch. And I'll say, if it wasn't done so much for comedy, at least the Raw one, I thought the Battle Royal setup for the men could have been done a little bit more intriguing, I guess. The match itself was just short. It looked like a freaking lumberjack match, but it wasn't. It just didn't make any sense. They might as well have done a 30-man tag team match while they were at it, but I guess they were saving that for SmackDown. And on the SmackDown, it was more interesting because it was intergender, and it's not often we see something like this. I wonder if they will keep this concept in mind when it comes to the Survivor Series. But the SmackDown version of it was more fun, was more entertaining, and to have Asuka eliminate Jeff Hardy, so to speak, in an impromptu battle royal. Yeah, just, like, okay, this could be fun. This could be cool. Giving Asuka an opportunity to win. I'm not saying Apollo Crews can't have an opportunity, but do you really want to win, Apollo? Just look at the history of everyone that's won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal and what's become of them. Matt Hardy was the last one to win, and he surely semi-retired. Before that, Mojo Rawley. Now he's yelling in the freaking mirror at himself. Big Show, like, well, he was bound to win eventually, and Cesaro. Enough said. So let's get into the WrestleMania lineup as it is now. As mentioned many times, Alexa Bliss will host the event. And in no particular order, but we do know that the main event will be the Raw Women's Champion Ronda Rousey taking on SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair, taking on Becky Lynch in a triple threat match, winner take all. Becky Lynch needs to win this. Enough said. For the WWE Championship, the new Daniel Bryan will take on Kofi Kingston. It's almost but predicted that Kofi Kingston deserves a championship match, but nothing saying that McMahon or anyone else, but most likely Vince, would say that there was some kind of shenanigans, there was a loophole or something that's preventing Kofi Kingston from winning the title. But the fact that Kofi Kingston gets announced as champion, and then later on we see, or shortly after, we see McMahon coming on stage and just ruining the party. So this match should not take place before the main event. And if not, just hold off till Raw the next night and just announce like, hey, you know, there was something wrong with the contract, and give the title back to Daniel Bryan. That is, if that's what the plan is for it. We all speculate here just as much as we see rumors online, and just my opinion, just my thought. I'm not complaining. I'm not saying how they should write the show, but if I was, this is what I would do. Universal Champion Brock Lesnar takes on Seth Rollins one-on-one, and surprisingly, there's no added stipulation here. There's no gimmick to this. It's just a straight-up wrestling match. Of course, even a blind man blindfolded in a dark basement should see that Rollins should win this match, freeing up Lesnar to return to the UFC. But depending how much more money Vince wants to throw at Lesnar to stay, to continue holding the Universal title hostage, to not return to the UFC, which I guess WWE is able to match every single offer UFC has given to Lesnar. And Dana White says, well, hopefully by summertime. So summertime that we'll see Lesnar return to have his first match. So what the hell is really going on? No one knows other than Lesnar and Vince McMahon. So if we see Lesnar retain the title, you know why. If it's Rollins, then we won't see Lesnar for a very long time. So if Dana White's report or interview answers were that Lesnar should be returning sometime in the summer, between now and then, we just started spring, but between now and summer should be more than enough time to train for his return match to the UFC. Just saying. Triple H takes on Batista in a no-holds-barred match where Triple H's in-ring career is on the line. And more than likely, win or lose, this will also be Batista's last match in the ring. As he's mentioned many times, long before this match was even announced, even during his promotions for the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And of course, interviewers couldn't, they have to ask wrestling questions. And one of them was, not only if and when Batista will return to the ring, and what's he thinking about continuing with wrestling or stay with Hollywood, or what the deal is. Well, Batista, in so many words, would say that he would love to have another match with Triple H at a WrestleMania. And that will be his last match. That was it. He just wants his one-off, and that will be it. If that's the case, and Triple H is the one that's victorious out of this, because we need to have some kind of attraction, since The Undertaker can always appear every year. So now Triple H seems to have resumed that role of the one-year attraction at a Mania. So Triple H, I see, will go over. Batista gets his proper send-off and final bow. And hopefully, if he's scheduled to appear on Raw the next night, he'll address the audience as David Bautista and say goodbye one last time. Shane McMahon and The Miz go one-on-one in a Falls Count Anywhere match, basically a no DQ match. I would suggest the pinfall takes place somewhere on a stage, backstage. I mean, I was there for WrestleMania 29. Thankfully, there weren't too many scuffles out in the crowd, but I was positioned where if I couldn't see what was going on, that wasn't in the ring, I could just look up to one of the Titantrons or one of the big screens that they set up. But for this, they're planning to make it a little bit bigger, so the staging may not be as wide with the Brooklyn Bridge setup background. But I would suggest somewhere inside the arena or inside the stadium should the pinfall take place. Not somewhere backstage where we're all going to be looking up at the screen and not really enjoy the match for what it is. And thankfully, Bruce Pritchard would agree with this argument because he mentioned this during his WrestleMania X7 or 17 review over at Something to Wrestle. And yeah, glad to see that someone in his position would agree with that argument. And by the way, I see The Miz getting over. Roman Reigns takes on Drew McIntyre. This should be a knocked-out, drag-out affair where Roman Reigns will be victorious. Needs to be getting his payback here against McIntyre, but still having McIntyre look strong in the match. And one of the first Fatal 4-Ways of the night, this one for the Women's Tag Team Championships as Bayley and Sasha defend against Beth Phoenix and Natalya, the Iconics, and Nia Jax and Tamina. Bayley and Sasha should retain unless Beth is planning a long-term career here or at least a little while longer. No reason to put it on them. The Iconics, I find them entertaining. I understand people find them annoying, but that's part of it. But other than to brag for a couple of weeks, I don't see why they should get the titles. Nia and Tamina, really the only heels of this team. I know the Iconics are a heel team, but I find them more entertaining. And there's no need for Nia and Tamina, as much of a Nia Jax fan as I am, but the material that she's been given and the delivery is just such a turnoff. But Bayley and Sasha are going to retain. AJ Styles and Randy Orton go one-on-one. I see Styles going over. Randy Orton is the veteran. It's time to acknowledge the younger guy, for lack of a better term, and give Styles his WrestleMania victory that he deserves. Randy Orton's been there, done that, and there's nothing really left to prove. As it's scheduled now, Samoa Joe would take on Rey Mysterio for the United States Championship. Unfortunately, Rey is still injured, even though he put out an announcement that he hopes to be cleared on time for Mania, as this will be Joe's first appearance at a WrestleMania after being called up to the main roster about 2 years ago. That's amazing. That's been that long. As Joe walks in as the United States champion. Hopefully there'll be a plan B. I don't know if Rey's son Dominic will take his spot, but it's hard to call this one because originally I would have loved to have seen Samoa Joe retain against Rey Mysterio, as Mysterio has reached legendary status. He's been at legendary status for a long time now. And to have a nice, cool run with the United States title would be great. But unfortunately, with the injury, I mean, what's the point of it? So, no word yet as of this recording. Maybe we'll hear something as soon as the kickoff. If not sooner, we'll see what Dave Meltzer or anyone else have to say of what they heard. Maybe WrestleVotes has some intel. But matter of fact, I'll look into some of this before I get off the air and pass it along to you guys. For the Intercontinental Championship, Bobby Lashley takes on Demon Finn Balor. Demon Finn Balor has been undefeated, at least on the WWE roster. NXT, I believe he lost one match to Samoa Joe for the NXT title. So it's all but confirmed and guaranteed that Finn Balor will win the Intercontinental Championship over Bobby Lashley. In what's built as Kurt Angle's farewell match, similar to Roddy Piper's farewell match at WrestleMania 3, Kurt Angle one-on-one with Baron Corbin. Now, it still stands. We're going to get this. Question is, how short of a match is this going to be? Because for the past couple of weeks on Raw and SmackDown, Kurt Angle really didn't have a match. It was either really, really short, or in the case of Rey Mysterio this week, it never happened. So the question is, can Angle go? Can Kurt Angle go for a few minutes? The argument here is Baron Corbin should go over because he's the young talent. He gets the rub, if you will, from Angle, putting the younger one over and still say goodbye. Somewhat something like Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels, but that was a whole different story. And it wasn't like Angle recently has been wrestling the past few matches for the past few weeks, and that the next time he loses, that's it. You're forced to retire. No, he announced this way in advance. And I honestly, in a perfect world, I'd rather see Kurt Angle go over in his final match against Baron Corbin in this case. But if it's not going to change into someone else, like a John Cena, like a lot of people preferred, and Cena is expected to be at Mania, to what capacity we still don't know. Everything is kept really close to the chest with WWE as far as John Cena's role at Mania. But if the case is that we do end up seeing Cena and Angle, for example, like I know a lot of people have been predicting this or speculating this, and I'm one of them, to have Cena go over Kurt Angle in his final match to get his win, so to speak, when they first hooked up back in 2002, where Cena made his debut after Kurt Angle issued an open challenge to anyone, and it was John Cena. For the SmackDown Tag Team Championships in the second Fatal 4-Way of the match, or of the night, the Usos defend against Ricochet and Aleister Black, The Bar, and Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev. Now, the Usos just recently re-signed a new multi-year deal with the WWE. Does that necessarily mean that they will retain? No. But if I can go out on a limb here, I say the Usos do retain. Because we still got the darn shakeup or the draft coming up on Raw and SmackDown. It's a 2-night draft. And with The Bar, they've been there, done that. Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev, they were only supposed to team up one freaking time. But here they are weeks, months later. See no point. By the way, how far Shinsuke Nakamura has fallen. Does it make sense to put it on Ricochet and Aleister Black? Well, maybe not if the idea is to eventually break them up. I mean, they can't tag team for the rest of their lives. Not to mention that they have a match the night before, 2 nights before at NXT TakeOver, being the winners of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, to take on the War Raiders for the NXT Tag Team Championships. So I'll get into that rundown later, but is the idea here having Aleister Black and Ricochet win the NXT titles to show up at WrestleMania to take on and fight for the SmackDown Tag Team titles? I mean, it'll be a hell of a visual. If it's for the sake of the visuals, then yeah, go with that rundown. But I just can't see it. It's just so much going on right now to try to make things make sense, if that makes sense. But I'm going to go with the Usos here, even if Ricochet and Aleister Black do show up as the NXT Tag Team Champions. It doesn't change anything. We get into the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal that is set for the kickoff. So as of right now, the participants are as follow, and many more could be added the day of. Braun Strowman, Colin Jost, and Michael Che of SNL. Andrade, Apollo Crews, Titus O'Neil, Tyler Breeze, Jinder Mahal, No Way Jose, Bobby Roode, Chad Gable, Kalisto, Gran Metalik, Lince Dorado, Bo Dallas, Curtis Axel, Heath Slater, Rhino, Victor, Connor, Ali, Shelton Benjamin, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Otis, Tucker, and EC3. I would expect maybe, they're in town already for WrestleMania Access. It started yesterday, and I mentioned last week the rundown of the Access schedule of Worlds Collide. There are talents from NXT UK who have flown in, talent from NXT that's gone up there, 205 Live roster members. So it wouldn't surprise me if more are added from such rosters that are not doing anything. Just get in there, go and have fun, perform in front of MetLife. For the women's battle royal, Asuka, Carmella, Naomi, Lana, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, Nikki Cross, Dana Brooke, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Sarah Logan, Mickie James, Zelina Vega, and of course more could be added the day of. This will be a very short, number-wise, very short battle royal, as again other members of the NXT UK members could be still taking place of this battle royal here. Also on the kickoff show is the Cruiserweight Championship. This poor title just can't catch a break, can it? Bobby Murphy defends against Tony Nese, and I want to see Tony Nese. I really do want to see Tony Nese as champion here. For the Raw Tag Team Championships that apparently was spoiled or leaked by a picture of the official WrestleMania program. Anyway, it's the Revival defending against Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. Here's my question. What? How is this really a spoiler? Or leak? How many times were matches added the day of? Wouldn't be a leak, would it? But WWE.com confirmed the match later on after the quote-unquote leak took place. And how long ago were these programs printed? Granted, this could have been announced vaguely on social media before the quote-unquote leak. Like, oh my God, it's spoiled and blah, blah, blah. I don't see it as a spoiler. I don't see it as a leak. Hell, I will not even go as far as to defend WWE as to why this was not announced sooner. But probably because there's just so much things going on with Access and public appearances all this week in New York. And we as fans are trying to keep up with as much as possible that's at least being streamed or photos that are uploaded. But it is just a lot. So for the argument's sake, I'm going to say that that's probably what happened. Just lost track of everything. Saying, oh yeah, by the way, or maybe there was a segment meant to be taking place on Raw this past week with Hawkins and Ryder challenging for the titles. It would have been out of nowhere, but hey, at least, all right, well, now we know what's going to happen with those titles, because every other title's being defended. Why not the Raw tag teams? And of course, we have Elias as the musical number for the show, which may or may not be interrupted by Undertaker, who is expected to be at Mania, but time will tell, and I'd rather be surprised to see exactly what happens. And if Elias is going to be interrupted, I'd rather not be by the Undertaker. So let me just mention a few names that are not scheduled to be on the WrestleMania card. Now, I just want to be sure here. Okay, so this includes NXT UK champions and members of the 205 roster. Aiden English, Akam and Rezar, Sanity, Alicia Fox, though she is medically suspended. Dolph Ziggler, Ember Moon, but she's out due to injury. Fandango, who's yet to be cleared to return to the ring, but he is medically. Lacey Evans, who may or may not appear in the Battle Royal and win it all. Maria, Mojo Rawley, Sami Zayn, who's yet to be medically cleared, although he's still, last I heard, rehabbing a few months ago. The Singh brothers, but they may show up during the Battle Royal to support Jinder Mahal. Sin Cara, who's yet to sign an extension contract, and a few others I've tried to run down through the long list of name roster that appear on WWE.com. And everyone else is scheduled to appear one way or another to make some kind of presence known. According to WrestleVotes, the WWE has put out a list of the WWE Hall of Fame Legacy Wing. Now, usually this could be a long list. I believe a couple of years ago they had up to a dozen Legacy members. This year we're going to see Wahoo McDaniel, Jim Barnett, Luna Vachon, Playboy Buddy Rose, and many more are expected to join the class of 2019 Hall of Fame of the WWE as D-Generation X, including China, minus Ravishing Rick Rude, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, 2 tag teams of the Hart Foundation and Harlem Heat, Tori Wilson, the Honky Tonk Man, and Sue Aitchen, longtime WWE employee for over 30 years, to be receiving the Warrior Award for her contributions and able to bring together WWE and other foundations like Make-A-Wish and Boys and Girls Club and other charitable companies and associations. So should be very interesting. I think it's the first time in a long time that they had 2 tag teams being inducted. Usually it's just a simple formula. You get a big name to headline, get a tag team, you get a female, and of course the recipient of the Warrior Award now, and anyone else who's available or willing to accept a Hall of Fame induction. But this is a pretty strong class, I gotta say. And other than Hulk Hogan inducting Brutus Beefcake, no one else has been announced as their inductors and introduced them into the Hall of Fame. So either way, it'll be interesting. Matter of fact, the Hall of Fame takes place Saturday night. Tonight, as a matter of fact, is NXT TakeOver New York. So a brief rundown of what we are expecting. Johnny Gargano takes on Adam Cole for the vacant NXT Championship in a 2 out of 3 falls match. I say Cole takes it. Make Gargano chase it a little while longer. For the NXT Women's Championship, Shayna Baszler defends against Io Shirai, Bianca Belair, and Kairi Sane in a fatal 4-way. I think it's I want to go with either Kairi or Io in this one. If the belief is Shayna is going to be called up anytime soon. And don't get me wrong, Bianca Belair does deserve a shot at the title and a run with it. But if I usually go with seniority on this when it comes to who should get the next shot at the title. I want to see either Kairi Sane or Io Shirai go over and become the new women's champion. For the WWE United Kingdom Championship, Pete Dunne defends against Walter. This just might be Pete Dunne's biggest and most physical challenge yet, as Walter is a big man. For the NXT Tag Team Championships, the War Raiders defend against Aleister Black and Ricochet. This was it's pretty tough to call because of how much involvement Ricochet and Aleister Black have with WrestleMania and the main roster. And given that they've literally gone after all of the tag team championships available in 1 week, this past week on Raw for the Raw tag team titles, tonight for the NXT tag team titles, and Sunday night for the Smackdown tag team titles. Can you imagine the visual of Ricochet and Aleister Black holding all 3 titles, holding up both one belt on each arm and having one around their waist? I mean, Big Show and Miz did it, sort of, but that was only 2 titles. But this was really tough to call. But if I have to go with a winner here, I say Aleister and Ricochet, and they show up on WrestleMania with the NXT Tag Team titles, which is yet to happen, by the way. Having any kind of tag team championship appear at WrestleMania, as far as I remember. I think Kevin Owens would have been the closest one, but he already dropped the title to, I believe, Finn Balor at Beast in the East. And finally, we have for the NXT North American title, Velveteen Dream takes on Matt Riddle. This one, with the exception of the 2 out of 3 falls match, this one could probably steal the show. Matt Riddle is really coming up. He's it's funny how he's been posting a lot of pictures of himself eating fast foods, but yet still able to keep that physique. But he's definitely coming up in the world as far as NXT goes, and I wouldn't mind a title run with him, but, you know, considering that Velveteen Dream just not too long ago won the title, maybe have these two feud a little while longer and lead into, I believe, July's NXT TakeOver. June or July. There's one before SummerSlam as well, so I'm going to go with the Dream on this one. And, of course, not without being too overshadowed, but it's also a big deal. And I will run down the G1 Supercard emanating from Madison Square Garden in New York City as Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling come together for this super show. And I'm going to try really hard to pronounce all these names properly or to the best of my ability. In a 6-woman tag team match, Kagetsu, Jenny Rose, and Hazuki take on Hana Kumar, Stella Gray, and Sumi Sasuke. In a Honor Rumble, their version of a Battle Royal, and more could be added later on. But for now, we have Cheeseburger, Beer City Bruiser, Tracy Williams, PJ Black, Kenny G, and Houston Thunder Liger taking part of this Battle Royal. Again, more than likely will be added. Maybe sometime tonight or maybe the day of. Will Ospreay and Jeff Cobb will go one-on-one. And another winner-take-all, title-for-title, champion versus champion match, as both the Never Open Weight and the Ring of Honor television titles will be on the line. Rush goes one-on-one with Dalton Castle. For the Women of Honor World Championship, as Kelly Klein challenges Mayu Iwatani. Bully Ray finally has an opponent for his New York Street Fight match, and he will be Juice Robinson. Ishimori defends against Dragon Lee and Bandido in a 3-way match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. In another champion versus champions winner-take-all, title for title, as the Guerrillas of Destiny, representing the IWGP, versus Villain Enterprises, representing Ring of Honor, Los Ingobernables de Japón, the Briscoe Brothers, all in one match as they all compete for the IWGP and Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. That should be a hell of a match. Tanahashi challenges Zack Sabre Jr. for the British Heavyweight Championship. Naito defends against Ibushi for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship. Jay Lethal, Marty Scurll, and Matt Taven in a 3-way ladder match for the Ring of Honor World Championship. And Okada will challenge Jay White for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. If this show, I don't see how it could not, but if this show is very successful, and I mean successful to a point where overwhelming response and feedback, this should be an annual thing. Make it happen. Doesn't necessarily have to be inside WrestleMania weekend. I mean, business is business. But you know you got to the WWE when you made them switch around the Hall of Fame and the NXT TakeOver show. Of course, WWE is like, oh, well, we wanted the fans to enjoy everything's facility. Yeah. You were forced to do that. You would never acknowledge it, and that's fine. But if Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling want to get together again to do something like this, again, it doesn't have to be. At least they now know that they can and stay ahead of the curve, so to speak, of WWE. Because when G1 Supercard was first announced, there was nothing scheduled other than knowing that, okay, that's WrestleMania weekend. But as far as scheduling Hall of Fame and NXT TakeOver, Ring of Honor and New Japan got there first. Even after the legal nonsense, like, oh, well, we can't have them there. That's WWE's backyard or whatnot. No, it is not. Kiss my ass, like Batista said. You're full of it. No. So, fans who are within the sound of my voice, if you are attending or even going to watch the G1 Supercard on pay-per-view or streaming services, let your voice be heard. Let your voice be heard. And support that Ring of Honor, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and maybe even another organization get together and do what the previous companies couldn't do back in the day with Super Clash. It's possible now. Man, I would love to have that argument with someone why it didn't work back then to compete. I guess one difference was they were intentionally trying to compete with Vince back then. Here, not so much of a competition. Like, hey, we want a show. And it's not head-to-head with WrestleMania or, well, not anymore with NXT. But now it's possible. Now WWE can't bully around other organizations out of territories anymore because territories don't exist. They don't. As of WrestleMania Sunday, Ronda Rousey will be officially the longest reigning Raw Women's Champion at 231 days, surpassing Alexa Bliss, where Ronda Rousey won the title from Alexa herself at last year's SummerSlam. Some more details on The Undertaker, according to PW Insider. The dead man is indeed set to be at New Jersey for WrestleMania weekend. Some fans have suggested he'd be the one involved in the segment with Elias, but that remains to be seen. And in a sense, it was last year who called out Taker because we've seen this already. A segment involving Elias and The Undertaker, but hopefully it won't be overkill. And when Elias comes out and says, oh, what, you expecting someone else? But we all know what's coming. There was just, like, it's funny, in nearly a 4 or 5 hour show, they purposely kill time and build up suspense because we all knew what was happening. But for a 3 hour show, for some reason, they can't follow the form. I guess because they have commercials, you know. It's the best excuse I can come up with. A bit of an update on John Cena himself, according to the Wrestling Observer and Dave Meltzer. Cena is still expected to perform at the show as Cena's WrestleMania's plans are being closely guarded. Cena's original opponent was to be Lars Sullivan, who is said to be returning real soon. But it was stated that this does not confirm he will appear on this week's show or any other future show that pertaining to Lars Sullivan. So, two names that have been thrown around for the past few weeks now, according to Dave Meltzer and PW Insider, the Wrestling Observer. They're expected to be there if they're not already. As mentioned before, Rey Mysterio did sustain an ankle injury, and he confirmed this via his social media account against his match with Baron Corbin on Monday Night Raw. Rey Mysterio has issued a statement on his Instagram where he confirms that he has suffered an injury and the status of Mysterio and the U.S. Championship match at Mania is currently unknown. In an interview with ESPN, Triple H mentioned that while he didn't think that he was going to get a match after October where he got injured with his pectoral muscle being torn at the event in parts unknown, he quickly found out that he was in line to take on Batista, and that while he's been medically cleared to perform, he isn't sure what will happen once he steps into the ring, saying, I got cleared up to perform, and my training is good. I feel good. But until I get in there, lifting dumbbells and getting hit by Batista are two totally different things. So I'll see how it goes. But I feel good. I'm expecting to get in there. And at this point in my career, I don't ever want to ever sound like if it's not as big as it is. But at this point in my career, it's all gravy. I take away from this that he's just pulling people's chain and he's good to go. He's cleared. He'll perform real well, especially considering a no-holds bar match. What risk are you taking if the man's not 100% clear, and if he doesn't feel up to it, would you put him in a no-holds barred match where weapons are allowed, where chances are you're going to be tossed and landing on concrete? Did you not see the match with Sting when he was fling over the top rope and his thigh landed against the LED apron board, and how bruised up that thing got for the rest of the match? I mean, does Triple H easily bruise? I think he does. One shot on the right spot, yeah, he's blue, purple, and red all over the place. I'm pretty sure he'll protect his pectoral, and that will be Batista's target. Work on that pectoral muscle. Work on the arm. Work on that shoulder. That entire area of the body. Staying with Meltzer here a little bit, he went into great detail about the Smackdown and Fox deal that's coming in October. It's being suspected that Smackdown might jump to 3 hours, but with a twist that the 2 hours were originally broadcast on Fox, but the third hour will be on Fox Sports 1. Could work, but this is what Dave had to say. It is speculation, but this is definitely a chance of this happening, because the feeling is that since they have to film anyway, and 205 Live is kind of just a waste of air, his words, not mine, it's just not working, and that maybe they'll do this 2 hours, 8 to 10 on Friday, and do the third hour on FS1 with the idea that they'll get like another $15 million a year from Fox by giving them that extra hour. End quote. By the way, none of this is made official. We do know that Fox is picking up Smackdown. We do know that it begins in October of this year. How many hours? We probably won't know until literally just a couple of weeks before this happens. I'm pretty sure there'll be a press release or some kind of announcement made when USA officially says goodbye to SmackDown again. No, for the first time, I believe. And to carry it on Fox. We shall see. The Usos, as mentioned earlier, have agreed to terms of a new contract for the WWE as they re-signed with the company just a few weeks ago. Terms of the new deal were not noted. The current deals were set to expire at the end of this month, just past WrestleMania, so they would easily drop the titles. But PW Insider had previously reported that the two sides have been negotiating all the way back in February for a new deal. And I guess they finally got it, so kudos and congratulations to the Usos. Chris Cyborg, Kurt Angle, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, Brutus Beefcake, and Psychosis are the most recent names to be mentioned to appear at StarCast 2. Yes, Kurt Angle and The Undertaker will be at a non-WWE event, not expected to appear on Double or Nothing that same weekend. But think of this as another WrestleCon, StarCast. And though it probably sounds a little bit or just as expensive to run a StarCast like a WrestleCon. And I've heard through the grapevine that it's almost been a nightmare to run WrestleCon, and especially in the area of the Hilton in Midtown Manhattan, to accommodate everyone with their needs and, to be comfortable. But from the talent that's been posting on social media as of late, everything seems to be going so far so good. But any complaints, I haven't heard of any of them yet. Chris Jericho was a guest on the Sam Roberts show, along with Chris Norton. And one of the questions brought up is the current relationship status between himself and Vince McMahon. And what he revealed was near jaw-dropping, saying that it's all but non-existent due to him signing with AEW. Jericho, while he talked to McMahon about it a couple of times, he's essentially a persona non grata with the promotion. He's been removed from their history, and when asked to have some talent on his podcast to promote WrestleMania, he was told due to his affiliation with AEW, it is not happening. He is denied access to WWE talent when before this, anyone could show up on his podcast. Also, this has impacted shoulder programming, as they call it, from the WWE, as Chris Jericho, alleges that the company took down some of the episodes of Up, Up, Down, Down, hosted by Xavier Woods, that featured Chris Jericho, and that the Edge and Christian show where Jericho was a guest was heavily edited, and also little to no reference of the name Chris Jericho. Yeah, this really says bitter all over McMahon. Then you know better next time not to free up one of your guys to do a New Japan show, basically jumping these imaginary lines. And we haven't seen Jericho or anyone after Jericho do something like this. Taker could do it if the money's right. Cena could do it, again, if the money's right, but I think Cena's still under contract legally. Pretty much any of the top names can do it. And this will bring up another argument about the independent contracting situation. And yes, I will talk about John Oliver. Tennille Dashwood, formerly known as Emma, has revealed on her Twitter account that she is now officially a free agent, saying that she cannot be any happier, healthier, and healed, and indicated that she is cleared and ready to start competing again. Jim Ross has finally made an announcement and confirmed by AEW that he has signed a groundbreaking 3-year deal with All Elite Wrestling as a senior advisor. And Jim Ross will make his first official appearance of the company at AEW's Double or Nothing during Memorial Day weekend. In an interview with Sporting News, Rob Van Dam has confirmed that he has re-signed a new deal with Impact Wrestling. And he was asked why, which is, I think, a fair question to ask, saying that the motivation for me is business. I'm always willing to listen to good business. That's still an interest of mine. The last 3 years, I'm averaging 1 to 12 matches. This year will be a little bit more, but much more than that. Even if it was double, that's still a relatively light schedule compared to when I was with WWE and doing over 200 matches a year. I had enough of that schedule. I was on the road full time. I also get treated better outside of WWE than I do there. That's how I've always felt. Whenever fans spot me, they say, RVD, you are a legend. People treat me like I'm a legend. And I am a legend. I feel like I've been walking the globe for over 100 years. When I'm in the WWE, it's hard to feel as appreciated because there aren't so many other stars and agendas. That's part of their business. They will take advantage of you if you let them. I'm in such a better mental position after being gone for so long. I feel like this is part of my life and it's rewarding for all these years of hard work and everything I've been through up to this point. I'm happier with my life now. I find the universe takes care of me in a good way with Impact Wrestling. It's more about the opportunity and the one that has presented itself. And hopefully it will go well for everybody. Can't blame the man. I mean, if he still has the passion and the heart to still perform in the ring, who's to tell him otherwise? And was it a bit of a surprising move? Not really. Not really. And there are a lot of former talent from the WWE that, like Rob mentioned here, just prefers not to work that schedule. It can be overwhelming at times, so much to a point where you're too tired to go home. So that will be another part of the argument in the John Oliver segment. But can't Can you really blame the man? That's all I got to say. It was made official that WWE Studios and the A&E network will be putting together 5 original documentaries about former WWE talent and WWE Hall of Famers, including Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, Macho Man Randy Savage, Booker T, and Roddy Piper. These documentaries are set to be at least 2 hours in length and will debut in the spring of 2020. Now, a bit curious to see because A&E did an Andre the Giant documentary many years ago, and I believe also did a project with WWF and WCW. Who narrated it? I forgot. He was at WrestleMania 6. But it was basically showcasing, how much of an entertainment aspect pro wrestling is in general. It wasn't to, I think it was called The History of Pro Wrestling. And I had the VHS tape of that. It's probably all dust now. But it wasn't meant to bash or expose too much of the business, but rather how things are conducted between the talent, the promoter, the creative team, the writers, and the agents. It was all done in a positive way. Having interviews with, at the time, current members of the rosters of WCW and the WWF, and I enjoyed it. Was it Steve Albert that narrated the documentary? Oh my goodness, this is going to bother me for the rest of the day. But it was well done together. They also did an Andre the Giant biopic on A&E that had less to do with the WWE itself, although they did have some archive footage and some personal and private pictures used of Andre, of him and his family, and times when he was outside the ring. Even that was well done. A lot of his family and friends took part. I think the HBO documentary was a step up, as that did involve WWE a lot more, adding more detail and inside information that none of us were aware about. And even speaking to the cast of The Princess Bride, I thought was a nice touch. And everyone pretty much had the same thing to say about Andre, how nice of a man he was. He really was a gentle giant. And A&E, I believe, was also the very first to broadcast on American television Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows back in '98. And that one really opened up the curtain, so to speak, about what happened at Survivor Series 97, and thus christening the Montreal Screwjob. And it was just, for me, when I first saw it, I'm like, wow, what timing. Even Comrade Thompson pointed it out when they discussed this Montreal Screwjob. The timing that the film crew, they got together with Bret Hart almost an entire year before the Screwjob happened, and that's what they focused on mainly. And supposedly it was supposed to be more about Bret Hart's family and their connection with the wrestling business as a whole. But then when they realized what they had towards the end of the bit, and a lot of behind-the-scenes footage of the aftermath of the Screwjob, they had a hit. They really did. And comments made after Bret Hart that was also used during the John Oliver's segment really speaks volumes today. But getting back to A&E, yes, I can't wait for these documentaries to come out. Hopefully they won't come out back-to-back, but rather spread out in the year 2020. And they're going to be heavily promoted on WWE TV. As mentioned last week, and it definitely happened, that AAA, Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide, confirmed that they will host an event at Madison Square Garden this year on September 15th for the first time ever. And this will mark the very first time this particular promotion will be hosting an event in the main arena, such as MSG, as they had previously hosted an event at the Hulu Theater inside Madison Square Garden's lobby, matter of fact, back in 1994. So that answers my question after the previous name for the theater in Madison Square Garden is now the Hulu Theater. I think before it was known as the Paramount Theater. When SummerSlam 98 was there, and they had the Lions Den match between Ken Shamrock and Owen Hart. So how about we get into this John Oliver stuff, because I'm about to wrap things up, and I know I'm going super long. So last week, John Oliver, host of Last Week Tonight, had more than 20 minutes of a 30-minute show discussing the state of the WWE and their independent contractor statuses. Now, as a fan, with the exception of maybe one detail, which I'll discuss here, there wasn't anything new that John Oliver announced. I was personally aware of all this, and I still ask questions to this day. And Oliver had his video editing team put together a lot of great visuals, a lot of great portions for examples of what he was referring to. Oliver goes into the preface of he's a wrestling fan, but then just goes after WWE really hard, bringing up many of wrestlers' deaths, calls the character and the actual person of Vince McMahon an asshole. And then it gets to the details of the whole independent contractor status and uses clips from Jesse Ventura when he was on the Howard Stern show, the Colt Cabana CM Punk interview after he left the WWE, I believe it was 2014, and the HBO interview with Roddy Piper back in 2002, 2003. And those particular portions of those interviews were discussing about how, once they're done with you, and Bret Hart and the Bret Hart skit from Wrestling with Shadows, that they put a slug in you in the backyard once they're done with you, and they treat you like a piece of meat when they no longer have use of you. Oliver does give credit to the wrestling fans for helping support wrestlers like Jake the Snake Roberts and others who were in dying need of surgery, and they could not afford it. So what these wrestlers did, provide a GoFundMe page and others, and they show the I believe it was from the Jake the Snake documentary that's on Netflix, where he uploads the page to see where they were. I believe he was asking for $7,000, and in less than 24 hours, he was just cut short. Or better yet, he was just underneath the amount. I think he made over $6,000 in less than one day. And this brought Jake to tears. He was there with DDP and the director of the documentary and one of their friends. And how overwhelming Jake became. And I believe it was Dallas Page that pointed out, you see, the fans still care. And we've seen Jake in a lot of bad situations. Of course, I believe was it in Canada? He was just heavily intoxicated. He couldn't wrestle. And he was trying to leave the location that they were in. And he gets to the outside, still in his ring gear. I believe he was shirtless. And a fan just walked up to him and just bashed him. He chewed him right out. How much of a disgrace and a piece of shit he was for showing up the way he did, not caring for the fans. Now, I don't know if Jake ever went back and saw that footage, and that was one of his many wake-up calls. But, the fans long-term, they still care. Me personally, you know what? I'll give you your space. You go through what you got to go through. Learn your lesson. And then eventually I'll come back to support you. But if you've done some heinous shit, forget about it. And, of course, a lot of people question how cleverly done this was made in referencing to how close, literally a week before WrestleMania. So that was no coincidence. There had to have been someone on his staff that was a wrestling fan that knew that eventually they'll cover the story and say, hey, WrestleMania is in next week in Jersey. What better time and place to do it now than here and air it on HBO? CM Punk responded to this, the show in general, how great it was, but also posting an old tweet that was taken down, forced by WWE, after CM Punk mentioned that he shit his pants on an episode of Smackdown. So it was taken down. So basically, CM Punk had to recreate that tweet, only tagging Last Weekend Tonight and John Oliver, saying in parentheses that he loves him. And that Oliver said, we found the footage of Punk shit in his briefs. But we're not going to show it because, principle. But it did show of a screenshot of Punk's expression after it happened. And he's all grinning, realizing, oh, no, I shit my pants. The Big Show chimed in, saying that everybody's entitled to their opinion. Everybody has their own experiences on how they feel. I've had a hell of a career. I've had a lot of injuries. I knew from day one, stepping through the ropes, that it was not going to be an easy job. It was a job that I was going to put myself at risk. I took the paychecks, I took the fame, took the fortune, and all these risks that happen. That's just part of the business, part of the industry, and the industry has changed. It's done everything it can to protect the athlete and creative longevity of an athlete. I'm 47. That's hard to believe. Big Show's 47. He goes on to say, I'm 47 years old. I'm still rocking and rolling, so they're doing something right. Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, Big Show is right. You do have your choice in life, and when it comes to signing with WWE, you make that choice. But if you read the fine print, and this is what really knocked me for a loop. I believe it was either in 2007 or 2010 that this was added to the WWE contract. Among many of the fine print you got to read. In so many words, basically, the WWE is not responsible if you die in the ring. If you die on their watch. Probably why they're not employees. Because if they were, and some freak accident happens in a ring, or even backstage, that causes someone's death, you are nothing but responsible. I'm not saying to wrap up everyone in bubble wrap, to make sure, especially in the case of wrestlers, to make sure you get from point A to point B, do your match, and come back the way in the same condition that you went out there as. And I throw one out there better, to arrive to the arena the same condition you left your hotel room and return it in the same fashion. We can speculate all we want as far as where exactly that part of the contract came from, because I know a lot of people are probably thinking, well, he probably did that because of the Owen Hart situation and the widow suing them for a wrongful death. Maybe. I'm not a lawyer to make that determination, nor will I ever be one. But between 1999 up until now, there have been a lot, maybe too many pro wrestling deaths, not all under Vince McMahon's watch or even under his umbrella, in all fairness. But when they showed the old HBO interview with Vince, where he's slapping the paperwork out of the interviewer's hands because he's acknowledging the interviewer, like, oh, you got that look on your face, like, oh, Vince, how can you say that? Back then, asshole. Even worse now, considering the circumstances and what's happened since then. That Vince McMahon and no one in the WWE would take responsibility of any kind, whether they were former talents or current, and died on your watch, that you don't step in and do something. Something. When the Warrior died, the day after the Monday Night Raw appearance, that the WWE sent over high-ranking officials to the Warrior's home to assist Dana and the children, because it was a real rough time for them to go through, and to basically keep the house going as far as make sure they have food in the refrigerator, that they're kept warm during winter and cool during summer, kind of thing, until they can get back on their feet. More than likely because he was just inducted into the Hall of Fame. He made his appearance at WrestleMania 30. He made his speech on Monday Night Raw after nearly 20 years from not being in the company or being on Monday Night Raw. And in less than 24 hours later, he dies. All eyes on Vince. What are you going to do about this? Did he take blame? No. Did he need to? No, not really, because unfortunately, Warrior got a heart attack. I don't think Vince had anything to do with that directly. But because I believe that the Warrior just recently returned, how cold-hearted it would have been to Vince not only not acknowledge this a week later with that tribute show, but also take action for his family, which I'm sure the Warrior would have been very happy about to have known that. There have been a lot of wrestling deaths outside of WWE. But of course, two others that stand out are the Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit situations. Arguments can be made about, well, Eddie Guerrero's, in the case of Eddie Guerrero, passing away the way he did. No, it had nothing to do with a bump he took in the ring or anything that anyone in Vince McMahon's circle did to cause it, because, I'm being real careful what I'm saying here. But because of his previous addictions and abuse to his body caught up with him, and he died of heart failure. Benoit, well, we know what happened there, but the aftermath was beyond repair, brain damage, but still somehow was able to function physically in the ring, at least to the very end there in the last few days leading up to that horrific weekend in a Benoit home. After brain tissue samples were taken from Benoit's body and examined, because of too many chair shots, among other things, head trauma, whether in the ring or not, Benoit was never diagnosed correctly and never took the time off to recover. In step in Christopher Nowinski, as he had to retire because of severe concussions. So, yes, in fairness, WWE has taken necessary steps to prevent this. No more chair shots to the head. If you're training in the Performance Center or as an NXT superstar, you are given padded helmets and you don't immediately start bumping in the ring. There are crash pads. There are other types of safety equipment that you land on before you do the real deal. But when it comes to the question of independent contractors, that's what they're called, but they're not. Because of this, they don't get any medical insurance. They got to pay out of pocket. Other than travel expenses, they pay for everything else. Hotel, Rent-a-cars. If you're not carpooling, if you're not Ubering, it's your responsibility to show up when and where you need to because they're telling you. But as an independent contractor, you can work for other companies of the same work environment, work experience. If you're a wrestler, then and I am truly an independent contractor. Well, this week I'm working for WWE. Next week I'll be in Japan. A month later I'll be in Canada, and by the time we get to August, I'll be in Mexico. That is a true independent contractor. So, not to dwell too much on this. This is not going to change anytime soon, folks. Even before one of the Hall of Famers got into the office, I'm pretty sure there were other ways to avoid this at a much higher level. Yeah, I said that. This also exempts them from paying certain taxes, depending on what state they're in. No. They're independent contractors. Oh, okay. I mean, it's not anyone in the arena's fault. This goes to the athletic commissions. I didn't mention this last week because I didn't think it was that big of a deal of a story, but rumors are Linda McMahon is thinking of leaving her position in the White House as administrator of small businesses. Hasn't been confirmed yet. If she does leave, will she return as CEO of the WWE? She had 2 attempts in Congress in Connecticut. Both times failed. Was never voted in. But I'm glad to see this John Oliver piece. Again, because like many others, I myself was aware of all this, but now being basically reintroduced to a new generation and a bigger platform, because this thing's gone viral. This over 20-minute plus segment of John Oliver's Last Weekend Tonight went viral. People are talking about it. Now, would it be enough talk that the right people hear it and maybe, hey, we should look into this? Wouldn't surprise me if there'll be something else announced just to draw attention there instead of to something like this. Now, is this a cry for help? No. Is this something that's going to make the country any better? No. But the fact that it's gone for this long and never addressed is something else that should be asked as well. This is what, one of the many reasons, but this initially is what blackballed Jesse Ventura from returning to the WWE, let alone getting a Hall of Fame induction. He and Vince barely get along as it is, and that's being nicely about it. But Ventura said on many a times, and not necessarily on shoot interviews, but on real serious political interviews, he would say, like, well, he'll have to pay me a lot of money. Does that mean as much money as Brock Lesnar? I don't know. Maybe. But much like Bret Hart and Batista, Jesse will speak his mind. He's a former governor, a former mayor, very intelligent. He can't get the votes to run as an independent for a presidency because all states, the offices that run the polls to basically run for presidency as an independent, just look the other way. They don't want to see this man that more than likely expose all the government secrets if he makes it that far. Now, yes, I said it before, I try the hardest to avoid political talk on my show, but when there's connections, there's connections. It just is. How many wrestlers like Rhino and Jerry Lawler try to run for mayor? Didn't work. Kane, the only success so far, he ran for mayor. Knoxville, Tennessee. So far, so good, I guess. But when it comes to something like this, it's a real serious matter. Vince and others in his position, at his level, could say, we do our best, but I think for me, the breaking point was it started off as a nice gesture to reach out to former talent and offer them rehab. But then later on in a conference call, when Vince was asked about it, no, that was just done for PR. And my first acknowledgement was, you son of a bitch, you really don't care. Everything must be positive around WWE. Just say that. And eventually things will, secrets will come out of their closets. I'll end here on a sad note, unfortunately, as if the previous story wasn't sad enough. But Vicky Funk, wife of wrestling legend Terry Funk, has passed away. Her death is so far determined as natural causes, as she passed away last Friday. It was Ted DiBiase who made it first publicly known on his Twitter account. And I immediately began remembering there were a few scenes in the Beyond the Mat documentary, and she is seen throughout the whole movie. Mrs. Funk is, and it's really sad. I hope Terry and the family are doing well, and that they'll get over this really, really rough time right now. But I express my thoughts, prayers, and condolences to the Funk family. In a very difficult segue, and I apologize for that, I hope everyone enjoys WrestleMania weekend. If you're either attending WrestleMania, NXT TakeOver, or even the G1 Supercard. It's not often we're going to get this kind of weekend like this, but just enjoy the hell out of it, and feel free to share your thoughts and comments. Let me know. If you go to the subscription area of this video, you can follow me throughout social media. Like to support my channel and subscribe. And I will have the results of all shows mentioned here today. So enjoy NXT tonight, Hall of Fame tomorrow, and the G1 Supercard, and Sunday night of the 50-hour-long WrestleMania 35 from MetLife Stadium. So this is Good Old JM saying until next time.
Open my eyes, leave it all behind. So open your mind and realize that your beautiful world could take my life. And I'm sinking under, drowning faster. Please just let me breathe.